Molly draws something very important. O'Brien forgot his wife was pregnant. Oops. And Jake and Miles go over the interphasic coil scanner, ODN recouplers, and quantum flux regulator, Mark III. Hey, everybody, and welcome to the Seventh Rule with Cirroc Lofton.
Hello, hello.
We're joined by a very special guest and friend of the show, Mr. Robert Hewitt Wolfe.
Hey.
All the way from cyberspace. My name is Ryan T. Husk. Today we're doing a quick review, fun review, awesome review of Deep Space Nine's Season 4, Hard Time. This was another very memorable episode. How you guys doing?
Doing good. Surviving.
Doing good. Yeah, doing good.
Nice. Actually, Cirroc's jacket almost matches Echar's face.
Right? Yeah, it's close.
A little bit.
Oh, I do want to give before we get started, a quick shout out to our good friends at Shout Factory, because I don't know if you've heard, you probably have. They have a new documentary called Woman in Motion, Nichelle Nichols, Star Trek, and the remaking of NASA. Check it out. I haven't seen it yet. I'm hearing a lot of really good things. Quick description: the inspiring true story of how renowned Star Trek actress Nichelle Nichols pioneered the NASA recruiting program to hire people of color and the first female astronauts for the space agency in the late 1970s and 1980s. The film will be available in home theaters, on digital, and on demand everywhere right now. That's in my own words. So, also speaking of documentaries, we've got the Voyager documentary Indiegogo happening right now. Check it out. The Seventh Rule is extremely involved. I'm co-producing, campaign managing. Cirroc is like in every event. We're going to do really cool stuff at Starfleet Academy. Let's talk about Deep Space Nine, shall we?
Let's do that.
All right. Hard Time, directed by Alexander Singer. Teleplay by Mr. Robert Hewitt Wolfe. Story by Daniel Keyes Moran and Lynn Barker. I don't know them. Did they pitch more than one?
Daniel Keyes Moran is a science fiction novelist. And he was partnered with Lynn. I'm not quite sure how that came about. But they did get invited to pitch. I'm not sure whether they may have written a spec together. I'm not sure. And they came in and pitched this to me. I feel like during season 2.
Wow,
and then it
really?
took a long time to get it to move forward. And I feel like they originally pitched it, I think it was a Bashir story, but I'm not 100% sure. So might have been a Cure story. I can't even remember anymore. It's been a long time. It took so long for me to kind of sell everyone on it that we lost track of them. Like, we couldn't find them. This is back in the day, right? And none of their contact information was good anymore.
Well, did you try Facebook?
Yeah. No. There was no Facebook. There was no Twitter. There was barely an internet. So I think we ended up, I don't even know. I just asked Paramount to track the guy down because I'd sold it essentially to Ira, and I think they looked for Daniel, not Lynn, because Daniel or Dan, I'm not sure what he goes by, to be honest, is a novelist and was probably a little easier to find. Mm-hmm. I do remember one story where they did find a Daniel Moran in New York, and it wasn't him, but it was a guy who was an ex-NYPD detective and a PI, and he offered to find him for us.
I can find him for you, though.
I can find him for you, though. I'm not him, but I can find him for you. I don't know whether that's how they found him or not. I feel like they went through his publisher, right? Yeah, it was tough. And then we finally found him, and he'd sort of given up. I mostly spoke to him. I barely talked to Lynn. He and Lynn weren't working together anymore. So we had to make sure we got her paid too, because they pitched it together in the first place. And he'd kind of given up on writing for the show in the interim. It'd been 2 years. So I don't think he'd really even watched the show. And so, yeah, it was a whole thing, but it all worked out.
Sounds like a whole thing.
It was a thing. But it was a cool story, and I think it turned out to be a really good episode.
Do you recall how he responded when you just kind of came out of nowhere and said, "Hey," a couple years later?
I think he was surprised, and I don't want to put words in his mouth, but I think he was a little pissed because there was actually a Voyager story that had some elements that were similar to this, and I think he had gotten it into his head that maybe that it had been stolen from him in some way, shape, or form. The episode was completely different, and we sort of, once we talked him down a little bit, it all worked out.
I can't think of the Voyager episode that would have these elements in it.
I don't really. It was a first season episode, I want to say, and I don't really, or maybe a second season episode, and I have no idea which one it was. But it was something about implanted memories as a punishment of some kind.
Okay,
there was some version of that. Anyway, obviously that wasn't the case. I was sitting on the story. I was trying to find him and trying to sell Ira on it for 2 years, and finally did. And yeah, so it all worked. We worked it all out. But yeah, it was just a little bit of more of an odyssey than usual to actually buy the story. Usually it's pretty simple. And in the interim, I think also, that kind of ate up a lot of our time. So that's why, sometimes in these freelance situations, we offered the freelancer the chance to write the script. But in this case, we'd sort of unfortunately eaten up all our time. And so I ended up writing it myself.
Since you brought up the implanted memories, do you think that that's a more humane way to punish people? Because my first thought immediately was like, wow, that's so cool. That's so humane. It's smart. They said it's financially better. There's all these things. I'm like, that's a great idea. Obviously, we don't have the technology now. I'm not pitching for it because we know that's impossible. But then when we saw what he goes through, it's better for the family. The family gets to see him the next day, basically.
I think it's that's why I think it was an idea to do, and I think that was Dan and Lynn's idea at the beginning. And I think that the idea is, it should sound like, okay, it's no big deal, right? You just had these fake memories put in, 20 years of fake memories. But for O'Brien, they're real, right? And so memories of trauma doesn't really matter whether they're real or not. They're still traumatic memories, right? And that, I think, was what we thought was interesting to play with. And it does raise the question whether there is any such thing as a humane prison, no matter how you do it. The memories they implanted were particularly brutal. It wasn't exactly like, wasn't club fed or anything like that.
Do you think that they implant the memories of like HR and him doing this? Or do you think that O'Brien has control over the events? Like this is the likely culmination of how O'Brien would have acted in this situation? Or are they just writing it and he's a passenger?
I think it's probably a bit of a combination. I feel like it's probably scripted to a certain extent, but I think the outcome of how that's scripted probably varies from patient or prisoner to prisoner, And I think this is what, O'Brien would say, this is me. I did this, right? Mm-hmm. I don't think it was completely, I think it's a video game in some ways, it's a really small enclosed VR video game that they're putting in his head. And I think he does get to make decisions in it, but it's a horrible situation. It's not like they're setting him into a situation, there's probably multiple points along the way where he could go, he could do something horrible, and O'Brien held out against the horrors for a long, long time. He didn't kill Ishar on the first day or anything, but I think, I suspect that while there's free will involved, I suspect that the vast majority of people who run through this particular scenario end up doing something horrible to either themselves or HR by the end of it.
So like bowling with the bumpers up.
Yeah. The ball's going down there, I think so. Like it's like when you're playing D&D and the DM just wants you to do this scenario and has the dungeon all ready to go, and like he's gonna make you do it, So it's gonna be some variation of that. You're not going away from this because he or she is prepped and ready, and that's the scenario that's going to get run.
Now you're talking Cirroc's language when you mentioned Dungeons and Dragons.
There you go.
Oh yeah, I'm all over that.
Yeah, this is against the frost giants. You're gonna fight the frost giants. There's no other. You're gonna get railroaded into this because that's the one that he or she's got ready.
Right, now we're really going down a nerdy hole here.
Deep nerd. Deep nerd.
I like it though.
Okay.
Honestly, it's more like Tomb of Terrors, where no matter what happens, everyone in the party is pretty much going to die. I mean, it's that kind of scenario. There's not a lot of wins in this one, I suspect.
I don't know what Tomb of Terrors means.
It's a famously brutal dungeon where almost always the players are going to die, and if they win, in the very unlikely event that they win, the treasure sucks, and it's not worth it.
It's not worth it anyway.
The only good answer to Tomb of Terrors, I think it's Tomb of Terrors. The only good answer is not to play. Like really, just nah, I don't want to go in there. Why are we going in here? This place sucks.
Everybody watching the chat, let us know if you know what Tomb of Terrors is. Let us know if you
now I want to
it.
say I now want to look it up too and see if it's right. It might be Tomb of Horrors or something like that.
They'll know. They'll get it.
Yeah.
They're pretty good.
Worst D&D module ever.
Drum roll, please.
Yeah. What's the worst D&D adventure of all time? Heart of Nightfang Spire. No. I don't know. Nah. Can't find it.
All right, we'll figure it out.
Whatever.
Well, Cirroc, I don't know. What do you think of this episode? To me, it was a very memorable episode, and as soon as I heard the title, I was like, "Oh, I bet it's the one where Miles gets stuck in that thing for 20 years or whatever." It really it stands out to me. It's because it's different than any episode we've seen in Deep Space Nine. It's a totally different idea. It's a totally different theme. And it's another one that doesn't really have a B plot so much. I mean, it almost feels like, I don't know, maybe you guys can speak on this better than I can, but it almost feels like the B plot is O'Brien's hallucinations of HR later on, I don't know. What do you guys think?
Yeah, structurally, it doesn't really have a B story. Structurally, it was the kind of story where it's tough to go to a B story,
Right.
Because the whole thing is about him being sort of stuck in his head and stuck in this moment and stuck in this situation. So you kind of want the audience to be there too. To cut away to a B story would probably let the tension out of it. We didn't do that all the time. It was rare that we did that, but we did it occasionally where we just didn't have a B story. And I think that this is one of those instances, and it works well, I would say. But yeah, there's no real official B story, that's for sure.
Yeah, we just did one that didn't have a B story, right? But I think it might have been Rules of Engagement or a session. One of them just didn't even have one. Well, it's because this has two stories built into it. There's the story that you see behind me and the story afterwards. So it already has two stories going simultaneously. Yeah,
I mean, in a weird way, the B story would be the flashbacks to ECHAR and the memories, But it's just one of those episodes where we didn't do it. Like I'm trying to think of another one. Little Green Men, right? Doesn't have a B story, I don't think.
Well, the B story, I guess, would be the people trying to bring them back. No, that wasn't even in.
I don't think there is anything like that. Little Green Men.
Yeah.
Past tense, the B story is the people bringing.
That's what
back,
I was thinking.
right?
That's the one, yeah.
But yeah, this one doesn't really have one, and it works without it. I think
if you put in a B story, there wouldn't be enough to tell the actual story.
And like I said, it would let the air out of the balloon. This is really a story about a man trapped in a place and trapped in a moment, and so like I said, you want the audience to be along for that ride. And that B story, cutting away to Jake learning how to fight with a bat'leth from Worf or something like that wouldn't have been very satisfying.
Well, he did teach O'Brien about whatever it was that I said at the top. Interphasic coil spanner, ODN recoupler, and quantum flux regulator, Mark III. Cirroc, do you remember that scene at all? Shooting?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I do actually, and one of my headshots are actually is taken from this episode. So while I was watching it, that was one thing that I noticed. So, hey, that's my headshot right there. So as I was watching it, I said, "Oh, they must have got it from here. That's pretty cool." But so no, I do remember a little bit of it, but not too much of it. I mean, it was just a few lines in this scene.
Mm-hmm. And the tough lines were on Column for that one. How cool was it that Column just completely carried that episode? And you guys probably knew that he could already. I mean,
that's part of why we kept giving these kinds of episodes to him, because he can carry the whole thing. And just because he's a terrific actor and just, could carry and could go to all the emotional places we wanted him to go, which is why, we used to call these like the O'Brien Must Suffer episodes that we would do like once a year.
I didn't realize you guys said that, because the whole
I feel
internet,
like we did, yeah, or maybe the internet did.
Too.
I don't know. I don't remember what the origin of the term is, but it's really a compliment to Colm, right? Because he just could just kill with these episodes. He'd do such a great job. But the other thing was the character was set up the best for it too, because he had a pregnant wife, young daughter, And so if it were Bashir going through, which I think was who it was originally proposed for, he just there aren't as many people like depending on him in the same way, And even Sisko, I mean, Jake is old enough that when there are some Sisko Must Suffer episodes too, there's plenty of crazy, I mean, in a weird way, like Visitor is a Sisko suffering episode, right? Mm-hmm. But it doesn't carry quite the same weight in some ways, just because by this point, Jake is like 16 years old, I think. Is that about right? 17, maybe?
About 16, 17, yeah, right there.
Yeah, somewhere in there, right? So that character isn't as dependent on his father as like Molly and Keiko are, like, and Sisko's not married. So it just the stakes are clearer and stronger with O'Brien, especially when you do these kinds of episodes, because it's just so clear. Like, if he doesn't get his stuff together, he's not the only.
You could say it.
Whatever. He's not the only victim, right? And that makes the episode more powerful.
Yeah. Was Molly a victim, or was she the villain?
She's the antagonist.
She was very aggressive with her poor suffering dad. She's like, "Daddy, hurry up and look at my coloring."
No, she's clearly the victim. We should have had Hannah on.
Actually, Hannah's moving right now, so she's not really available to come on. But as we were watching this, I was thinking, damn, I would have loved to have her, because she was also in one like just a couple weeks ago too. But they're moving. But yeah, she had a lot of scenes and a lot of lines, and she even had like the final moment. I don't know, I really liked it.
I mean, obviously, everyone in this is the victim, right? The antagonists are mostly off screen for the entire episode. The bad guys just sort of do their thing and then split out in the teaser. They're done. So it's really all about the after effects, right? And that's what I really wanted to do an episode about. I mean, this is obviously, a lot of it is about PTSD, and which was not a super hip thing at the time to talk about, but it was in the consciousness, right? I think, at least a little bit.
You're right. We've made a lot of huge strides in that recently only. Sorry, what were you saying, Cirroc?
No, Robert, you said PTSD, and you just kind of triggered something for me. I just wanted to know if that was what the impetus behind this whole episode was. Was that the story you were trying to tell?
Yeah, that for me was really what the story was about. That was really, I think, what I was going for more than anything. I mean, my wife at the time, still my wife, but at the time my wife was a psychotherapist, so she was very familiar with that. And she was working with some high school kids who were struggling with some issues. My father was a war veteran, so he certainly had his demons.
Right.
And that I think was really my interest in the episode more than anything, was like as a cool way to sort of get into those effects of what happens to someone when they go through trauma and when they're struggling with trauma, with past trauma. So that was really what it was about.
Hold that thought. I definitely want to talk about that a bit more. We have to take our break super quick. The fastest break in the world, in the quadrant. I do want to give one final shout out to the Indiegogo for the Voyager documentary. If you love the Deep Space Nine documentary, if you love The Captains, if you love Chaos on the Bridge, or all of these awesome documentaries by 455 Films, go check out the Voyager documentary on Indiegogo. We'll have the link in the description box below. Check it out, jump on it quickly, make it happen. It's Voyager's turn. We'll be right back on The Seventh Rule. Hey everybody, welcome back to The Seventh Rule with Cirroc Lofton.
Hello.
We have writer, superstar, producer extraordinaire, Mr. Robert Hewitt Wolfe today, regaling us and teaching us all things writing. Here are some quick trivioids that you may or may not like. Chief O'Brien draws a line in the sand. That's okay. We'll mark that under not like.
I guess you can say that.
Chilash fruit makes Miles feel better. O'Brien forgot his wife was pregnant. Oops. Chief has 3 counseling sessions a week with Counselor Telnori. I did kind of wish we met Counselor Telnori.
Yeah, me too.
Just to see what he was like, because it's clearly some kind of alien with a name like that.
Yeah.
HR likes to draw Isikas on the ground. Jake and Chief go over the interphasic coil, spanner, ODN, recoupler, quantum flux regulator, whatever. Molly draws something very important. All right. There's only so much techno babble I can survive in a 1 hour span. So anyway, you were saying about the PTSD, because that definitely came through in the episode. It was very clearly about that. It was not just about the memories that he was having, but how he was reacting towards everybody else. And what I had forgotten until just watching it again was how powerfully it affects Miles. Not the memories weren't what was driving him to consider suicide. It was how he's affecting everybody else. So he's very cognizant of the fact that he is hurting other people. He's not looking at himself like a victim. He's looking at himself like, I'm the monster. I'm doing bad things to people I care about. And I thought that was a really good depiction of PTSD, because they're not always thinking, I'm this victim, I'm this victim. They're thinking, God, I'm being terrible to other people, which makes them feel so much worse. And it's this terrible burden to carry.
Yeah, again, like I think my wife helped a lot with some of the real of all that. I talked to her a ton about it when I was writing this one, and when we were breaking it, just to make sure that we were trying to get it as accurate as we could. And she's got a master's in psychology and was a practicing counselor at the time, so I think she brought a lot to the table with that. I don't think the episode would be as good. I just think I feel like some of the rage issues, the suicidality, I think that was the stuff that was hyper alertness, agitation type stuff. I think that was some of the stuff that she brought to the table. Again, it's 20 years, 25 years, right? It's 25 years. So I can't remember all the conversations we had. I just remember we had a lot of conversations. I mean, the hallucinations and the memories in some ways are the least realistic, but they're the most cinematic, And so we definitely leaned into those. But the details of like how he was suffering and what he was going through and what he was thinking, I think that was the stuff that she helped the most with.
Yeah, you're right. 25.
So anything that's good is a credit to her, and anything that doesn't ring true was us in the writer's room doing writer's nonsense.
What about the people that pitched it? That's all the other stuff.
I think that I can't remember how much was left from the original pitch, but obviously the kernel of the idea and how it would be a psychological study in trauma was definitely part of the original pitch. So I think that I feel like the original pitch was, I want to say, like noisier. There was a lot more events in it, I feel like, and I think we really pared it down to just, it's O'Brien, it's his memories, and it's what he's dealing with, and just like made it a very simple story. Mm-hmm. To give room for all the character stuff, right, and to give Calm, and everyone he got to work with in this episode chances to shine. I think that's really where we're coming from.
Yeah. Cirroc, every time Sisko has one of his dressing down moments, I always think of you, because I know those are some of your favorite moments where Sisko is just like, oh, by the way, I'm about to remind you of your place. And even when O'Brien says, like, hey, as a personal favor to me, mano y mano, buddy, remember I let you beat me at darts the other day or whatever, even I did think, because I'd forgotten, I did think it was going to sway Sisko. I thought he was going to be like, well, okay, but no, but he's just like, look, this is what I have to tell you. I'm your boss and I'm going to do it. And he's very comfortable and forceful when he's just saying, you got to do it. You're relieved of duty. Uh-oh, you're muted.
Nope. Now you turned your picture off. There you go.
There we go. Now we got you.
No, yeah, he really stays on this really rigid line of principles and morality. Sisko is really strict on when it comes to that. He doesn't like to waver too much when he's set his feet in on what he believes is true or right. But, when I was watching this episode, one of the things that came to my mind, Robert, was Twilight Zone. And
wow, yeah.
I thought of this episode called The Last Man on Earth. I don't know if you remember that episode.
Is that the Burgess Meredith one where he breaks his glasses?
No, that's also a good one where he likes to read and he breaks his glasses at the end. No, this is the one where the guy, he feels like he's the only man in the world. He's walking down the town, and everywhere he goes, he sees a cigarette is burning or coffee's on the table, but there's nobody there. He walks into the movie theater, and there's a movie playing, but no one is in the theater, and he's just walking around, and there's no one there anywhere, but it seems as if somebody was just there at some point, right? And at the end of this Twilight Zone episode, and I don't know if I'm sure I messed the name up, but at the end of the episode, we find that it was really an experiment, that he was put in isolation in this little pod, and that this feeling of him being the only man in the world was only the result of this experiment. And so as I was watching this, that was one of the thoughts that came to my mind, was this kind of experimental thing that you kind of highlighted on. It was like this experimental, basically, rehabilitation with prison reforms. So I just wanted you to get in a little bit about that.
Yeah, I vaguely remember that episode, but yeah, there were a lot of like studies done, and I feel like in the 60s and 70s, some of them like horrible and illegal, where they went into like this whole idea of like sensory deprivation, or like trying to create hallucinogenic experiences that could re-educate people or change them. And yeah, so that was probably part of that, may very well be part of what was the original impetus for Dan and Lynn to pitch the show in the first place. But we were, I think to us, the sort of the tech of it, whether this was real and whether it was based on real experiments and things like that, was probably just the least important part. To be honest, this is one of those episodes where the science fiction is much more about the fiction than the science. And I think it was just really, we were much more interested in this story of O'Brien's personal trauma and PTSD. And ultimately, I think, one of the big things that we wanted to say was like, O'Brien's going to get help for this because that's what you should do. And it's going to take time. He's going to take his medicine. He's going to see his counselor 3 times a week. And he'll get better, but this is not something that just is going to go away, and like they're not going to run a magic Star Trek thing over his head and now he's better. That this is something that is just like in real life going to be a struggle for him, and it's going to be hard work for him, and it's going to be therapy for him.
Right.
And one of my big regrets, honestly, is we never saw that again. I wanted to revisit it, Yeah. And I think on a show now, you would. A show now would probably, you'd see him in counseling and you'd follow him, and you probably wouldn't do this whole arc in one episode. You'd probably use this as a B story or a recurring C story for O'Brien that would run over the course of 3 or 4 episodes and get to the same place, and then he'd get that catharsis with Bashir, and then you'd still see him going to counseling every once in a while, and that would become part of the show, right?
Wow, that would be so cool. And then you do see the sessions with the doctor, Nori,
and all that stuff. But that's just not how we did it back then. Like that just wasn't, they let us do a certain amount of continuity on the show, but they didn't let us do that. Like we weren't going to be able to do that. So that's always been one of the biggest things that I've sort of regretted about the episode, in addition to O'Brien's prosthetic beard. But
I do want to get into that though after you're done here.
But the fact that we couldn't revisit it, this episode was about the fact that this was going to take time for him to recover from, and that he was rightfully seeking out help and using that professional help, the medicine and the counseling. And the fact that we never got to follow it up sort of made it feel like it was just, that's it, the end, magically everything's fine. Where of course in the real world it would be years of work to get completely over something like this. And you never really be over it. You just have to learn. You'd learn tools to not have it screw yourself up all the time. So that's what we wanted, but we didn't get to do that. We had to jam it all into 42 minutes.
So you didn't like the beard? Was it the?
Yeah. I thought it was a little over the top personally, but whatever. I mean,
he has to have a beard, right?
I think he does have to have one. There's no way they're shaving him, right? He's just thrown in there like a wild animal.
But he looked a little too wild animal-y for you.
I don't know. I mean, I'm not a makeup person. Our makeup people were great. I mean, don't get me wrong. They were terrific. I just in rewatching it, I was like, wow, that's a lot of prosthetic. That's a lot of fake hair on his face.
Yeah, there were stages. I think it was growing in as they were showing different periods. So there were some stages I didn't like as much as others.
Yeah, there were some stages that looked great, and then there were some stages that were like, that's a little regrettable, to be honest.
By the way, can we talk a second about the actor that played Ichar?
Yeah, he's great.
I was, upon watching it this time, I was like, this guy is so good at being likable. Like just being like this guy. Like, the best you guys can do is write a character that's likable, but it's up to the actor to, either hit that role well or even add, preferably add more to it, make it even better. And this guy he was just so good at the way he spoke and his cadence and his little smiles and he was like immediately very best friendy, what a great actor. I should have looked him up beforehand, but I don't know. I wanted to see.
Craig Wasson.
Mm-hmm.
Craig Wasson. I thought he was terrific. I thought that he was really, really good. I mean, he brought a lot of humanity. That part required a lot of humanity, and he absolutely brought that 100%. He just totally nailed that part. He was so good. And I'm trying to remember. I feel like he was the lead in Body Double or something. He was either he was the star of Body Double, maybe that Brian De Palma movie. And so clearly like a really strong actor. I think he was just one of those guys. He didn't have a tremendous career, or he may still be working for all I know, but but that was his big starring turn, was that, I think.
Yeah, looking him up, he stopped working about 15 years ago, at least as far as IMDb is concerned. But he's got 80 credits. So he definitely did a lot of things, but probably nothing to, jump out at you. He's done like Walker, Texas Ranger. He did one Star Trek thing, Touched by an Angel. There was one role that it says he played a pornographer. So I don't know.
But like, he was the lead in a big Hollywood movie, and it's kind of like, I think, as Cirroc can attest, the actor's life is a tough one, but this guy's clearly very talented, and anybody who can, again, I always, people who can go on and get all that makeup on their face and still come through, that's a big talent. That's a lot. That's a very underrated ability to do that. And
confirmed about Body Double, by the way, 1984. He did play, but do you know what the character's name was? I didn't know this. Jake.
No, really?
That's funny. That's funny. Yeah, look, I mean, it's like I said, Cirroc can speak to this. The actor's life is full of like ups and downs, and we just happen to catch a guy who, definitely is skilled enough to carry a whole movie, and we got to have him as our number one guest star.
Yeah.
Oh, I thought, Cirroc, you were going to jump in about the actor's life being hectic or whatever, but you're like, just
I do know about the actor's life being hectic. Yeah, it can be somewhat stressful sometimes. Especially when we get those kind of rewrites, Robert, that you used to give us.
Every time we talk, you get on me about the rewrites. That wasn't my fault.
He never mentions it any other time.
I know.
Someone's mic is hissing real bad. I'm not sure whose it is. I think someone, when they're moving, your mic is hitting, and it's like, psh, psh, psh. I don't know whether you guys are hearing that or not.
Maybe I got a nice noise canceling thing, but I'm not hearing anything.
Oh,
Do you still hear it?
No, it's better now.
Okay.
I think it was Cirroc over there.
It looks like it's all better now.
Now he's on mute.
Yeah,
you fixed it.
Fixed it.
Oh, that's cool.
Did you still hear it?
No, yeah, you fixed it.
Great.
Okay.
Yeah. The last minute rewrites again. Like, I cannot tell you how we hated them as much as everybody did, but it was just like the way the show was. I think I showed you guys the marked up script the last time, and we were just always getting notes from like Rick or. There were always stuff. There was stuff that we're trying to fix all the time and adjust for production and things like that. It was just a never-ending moving target until the day we shot.
Were there any times where you would get that last second note and you're like, oh boy, here we go, and then you looked at it, you're like, wow, that's a really good note. Thank God. You're like, thank God we got this in time.
Sure, there's plenty of times where we got last-minute stuff that it was like made the show better. Sometimes you could argue that wasn't the case and it was a lateral move,
Right.
But there were absolutely situations where like, oh, that's better. Or even like, I mean, the one that stands out always is the root beer scene in Way of the Warrior, which was done clearly just on to fill time. Like we were short and they were like, wow, write a scene that we can shoot tomorrow with two of these three actors on one of these four sets, because that's who we've got. And that's who's going to be in makeup and, and it needs to be 3 minutes long, So yeah, a lot, and that turned out to be a great scene. A lot of the times the changes would make things better. But it was hard on us, and it was really hard on the actors. Four actors are sitting there like, eating lunch and they get change pages that affect the afternoon work that they've already memorized. That's no fun.
No, I'm sorry I give you a hard time. It's not your fault.
No, it's all right.
Hard time.
I'm always giving you a hard time for no reason. It's part of the process, and we're all trying to do our part. So I know you're not trying to make my life miserable. We just sometimes think that.
No, it's all good, man. You also didn't see us often enough to give us enough crap to so you've got all this stored up, like.
Yeah, I got to pent up. It's been built
we
up.
weren't on set all the time. So like when you're on set and this stuff happens, like you sort of eat crow right then and there, and you say your apologies, and it's like, oh, I'm sorry, I had to make these changes because of X reason, or why we lost this actor, or the weather is bad, or the set doesn't work, or whatever that makes you do these changes, or we got a note from the studio or the network or whatever. Or the actor who's sitting right across from you, it was the one who wanted the changes. So deal with that. No, no, you don't ever throw the other actors under the bus that way. But we weren't there. So we weren't there to eat. We weren't there to eat the crap that we deserved for these last minute changes. So you've got my full permission to exercise all those demons.
One other thing before I know we're getting short on time, but I did want to talk about this concept that I thought was brought up in this episode, and at least made me think about this. And one of the things that it made me think was, when somebody does time in jail, is it the time that is the punishment, like the taking away X amount of years from your life? Or is it the experience of those things that happened during that time? And I thought that was another good question that was brought up by this episode.
Yeah, look, I mean, I think it's probably both, but this episode certainly says the experiences matter just as much as the time, and the feeling, and especially when a prison system is brutal, that takes a toll. The brutality, the daily brutality, the stress, the difficulties and the struggle, I mean, I knew two people growing up. Well, one of them was Peter Allen Fields, and another was a teacher at my school, who were POWs, essentially. Peter Allen Fields was a POW in the Korean War when he was very young.
Wow. And
I had a teacher who was like a missionary in China, and he was locked up by the communists for, I think, 7 years. And Peter was not locked up for very long, was not a POW for very long, from what I remember. But he had some horrific experiences that haunted him, I would say. And this teacher of mine also, he was locked up for a long, long time. And I think had a combination of both horrible experiences and those lost years. I think we're all experiencing a little bit the lost years effect right now, right?
Yeah.
Because of COVID.
Right.
And certainly, for me anyway, it's not the worst. I'm in a nice house and, with my wife and my dog, and we're managing. But that's and the internet, and television and there's all the things, but still, it feels like a lost year, and there's some damage there. Imagine that plus traumatic experience, plus, the conditions being horrific. I mean, that's just people break under those circumstances. It raises the question, and I think we wanted to raise the question whether that was the best way to deal with people who committed crimes. And I think like a lot of hopefully good fiction, it doesn't answer the question, it just raises it. And ask the audience to think about that,
Okay.
Yeah, it does. It just raises more questions. And it also makes, I thought that you dealt with integrating after the experience really well. The kind of uncomfortable, the PTSD that you would feel having gone through that. And I know personally a lot of people that have been locked up and now are out, and they feel the weight of opportunities not being available for them, or people looking at them differently, or they're carrying this record around with them forever. So it is also something that, I think that a lot of people are dealing with.
I think there's an idea behind our prison system that you serve your time and then you're done. That's what it's supposed to be, I guess. Go to prison, do your years or whatever, come out, maybe you're on probation, you got to report in every once in a while, you got to toe the line. But I think it's easy to underestimate the long-term damage that kind of experience can have.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that that's kind of what this episode's about, is like, it's not the Agrathi are like, it's over. He's done. Like, he suffered, he did his time, now he's free.
But he's not done. Yeah.
But he's not really done, is he? You know? Can you recover? You know, it's not an easy thing to recover from having been in prison. To really like, and there's a lot of recidivism, and a lot of people don't handle it well, unfortunately. There are definitely people who do, and God bless, manage to overcome it. But I think it's naive to talk about the prison system as something that happens and then it's done, and not acknowledge that there's a lot of baggage after that.
Mm-hmm. So we're just about out of time here, guys. I do want to point out also that there was a bullion in this episode, which made me happy. I like seeing their little blue heads popping up. It was a really cool episode, really interesting, and I'm really glad that we are understanding and talking about PTSD much more now. And episodes like this really help to highlight that, because it's a legitimate issue that people used to just shit away back in the 70s and before, you know. But anyway, we all know about that. I do want to give a special thanks to Carmen Shamwell, PJ Tomas, TJ Jackson-Bey out in Missouri, Bill Victor Arucan, Yvette Blackmon, Homer Frizzell, Eve England in Wales, Anne Marie Segal, Titus Mohler, Tim Baum, Sue Gruner, Robert Weisberg, and Darlena Marie. And also a very special thanks to Mr. Robert Hewitt Wolfe for always making this show about 5 times cooler. Thanks.
I enjoyed doing it with you guys. I appreciate that you guys are looking at these episodes. It always feels good to think that people are still enjoying them and getting into them after all these years.
It's going to be 5 more decades at least of people appreciating this. I mean, it's just going to keep going, you know.
As long as I get my checks.
Cirroc will handle that.
No, not from you. From the Writers Guild.
From the real guys. Stop. Yeah.
All right. So everybody at home, stick around for the free-for-all. We will be right back. Also check in the description box below for Mr. Robert Hewitt Wolfe's book trilogy that is really cool. I already bought the first one, and you are going to love it. It's YA fantasy. We should have talked about that a little bit more. We've covered it before. Everybody just go in the description box below, click the link, and you'll get all the information there. It's really good stuff. Definitely check it out. Stick around for the free-for-all. We'll be right back on the 7th Rule.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to the 7th Rule. I'd like to introduce Ryan, Melissa, Cirroc, Carly, TJ. I'm Sue Gruner. Welcome again. Let's go.
Did you get Homer?
Let's rock and roll.
And Homer Frizzell.
Oh, I missed Homer.
It's okay.
Sorry, Homer.
He's somewhere
Where
in
are
New
you?
Yeezy.
I don't see him. Oh, there you are.
Homer Freezy.
That's where I am.
In New Easy.
Hello,
And
everybody.
it looks like you've got a Chat Pack shirt on, but I can't tell for.
I do.
There it is.
Yay.
Hang on. Ta-da.
Nice. The beat.
Beautiful. You can get that at Melissa's store, Walking Art Made by Melissa, in the description box below. We also, I know for a fact, Dr. Sue Gruner, there it is, Abyssinian kiosk. That is
nice.
the Sisko Kid. How gorgeous are those
Very
colors? Wow. And the shirt disappears if you want it to, off and on. It's pretty cool.
Very nice. I like it.
I mean, since
I'm
we're
pretty
showing
sure
everything
that's a
off.
Me Too comment.
Well, what if a dude's wearing a shirt? No, that's still not right. Okay. Well, because it disappeared. It half disappeared.
It did?
I'd disappear with
Yeah.
this jacket if I had a green background.
Yeah. Well, you can, Cirroc. You can set it up to where your jacket disappears. Also, Carly has a really cool shirt.
Oh, the
Ta-da!
behind.
Woo. I like the
That's-
rainbow.
That's Chase Masterson's creation. Check her out. All of the good stuff. It's bekindmerch.org, I believe is where you can find that. And Homer can verify
Also,
because
Carly's
he has a
hair.
mug.
Just got this.
Beautiful.
Cool.
Yeah.
Shout out to
Cheers.
Chase Masterson.
Ooh.
All right. Let's get started, shall we? Enough screwing around, as Cirroc likes to say. Every time we're on break, he's always like, why are you guys always screwing around?
Yeah, no.
That sounds like
Yeah, that's me, all right. Yeah, that sounds like.
So here's a fun question for everybody. This was a torturing Miles episode. What do you guys think? What's your favorite Miles O'Brien moment? Just ever. I know. Favorite Miles O'Brien moment. You have 3 series to choose from. What are you saying, Cirroc?
I have a favorite moment, but it's not necessarily a Miles O'Brien moment. That's the funny thing.
Why are you guys always screwing around?
My favorite moment with Miles is in the Lower Decks animated series. And when they basically say the greatest Star Trek character of all time is Miles O'Brien,
Right.
Chief O'Brien, I like that homage that they paid to him in there.
Totally.
So that's my pick.
That's why I said we have 3 series to choose from, but now it's down to 2.
Down to
That was really cool, though, wasn't it, Cirroc? That was one of those moments where when I saw it, I was like, damn, I wish I could see Cirroc's reaction to this.
No, I loved it. I was like, because everybody was thinking that they would say Spock or Kirk, but they said when they went O'Brien, I was like, all right. They went for the Salt character, the guy who was flying under the radar, wasn't overly, hogging up screen time from anybody, and just a guy who was always put in work, showed up, got the job done, and it was a likable guy because Miles never really picked fights with anybody or gave problems to anybody. So I like the fact that they paid homage to his contribution to Star Trek.
By the way, everybody, how cool is Carly's new hair? Look at that.
That's what I've been trying to say.
It's quite awesome.
Weird. Strange not having any hair.
Carly, do you have a favorite Chief Miles Edward O'Brien moment?
Kind of a mix, actually, because I really love pretty much just any holodeck time of him and Julian getting crazy, doing whatever dorky boy thing they're doing, like the Alamo. But one of the things I really loved, and I know Ryan will get this and Melissa, but it's when he takes home Bilby's cat.
Oh.
I don't remember
that. It's when he goes undercover for the Orion Syndicate, and I don't remember if he's supposed to be going after Bilby specifically. I think that was what his goal was, but whatever happens in the long run, he ends up taking Bilby's cat home and keeping his cat. So me being, the cat rescuer, I'll take any cat home. So, and I was like, yay, Miles did what I did. So.
Best cat moment was, I will feed him.
And he is a pretty cat and a good cat.
And a good cat.
Well, that's a good one. You said you had like a mix of things. Was that the main?
Those two,
mix?
Mostly anything holodeck, and then that cat scene. Basically, I really like that. So,
well, Melissa, do you have a favorite Miles O'Brien moment, cat related or otherwise?
I don't know if I have a favorite. There's some moments that do stand out, like. Yeah, the holodeck stuff is fun. Holosuite, holodeck, whatever. But I also like the episode where Kira kicks him off of the runabout because they're having that chemistry. We haven't gotten there yet, but when she's
Yes.
Bad idea.
yeah, but I don't want to give any spoilers away because
Do you want to say why you liked it very much? Are you able to say why you liked it so much without giving spoilers?
I don't know that I can. Because it's a different dynamic in relationship for Kira and O'Brien, and it's a fun dynamic to almost explore, but they don't quite. So,
Melissa, are you on Team Mira?
Oh, is that Miles and Kira?
oh, maybe in a different life.
In the mirror universe.
There it is.
In an alternate one.
I'm on Team Kaker, right? Keiko and Riker. Those two should really. That should be that's a better question.
Mix two Star Trek characters' names.
Yeah. Put them as a couple.
Come up with your own. Yeah.
TJ, do you have a favorite Miles moment?
Well, first of all, I have a favorite original mixed characters names. This has probably never even been thought of before, but I thought it would be like my two favorite Voyager characters are Tuvok and Neelix. So like they could totally put those together and maybe call them like Tuvix.
Huh.
Clever.
100%.
Creative.
Brilliant.
I've never thought of that.
Did you see that meme?
Light bulb moment.
No one's ever thought of that.
Did you see that meme that just somebody posted just really recently where Chakotay tells, Janeway's like, hey, do you want a snack? She says, sure. And he holds it up and it's like Twix, but it looks like Tuvix.
Love that.
Her face is just like,
yeah. that was brilliant.
They also made one that changed up the Netflix picture for the Making a Murderer. Only they put Janeway's face in there and then Tuvix at the bottom. So then they changed Netflix to Neelix.
Yeah, Neelix and Chill. So
okay,
sorry,
so all right. What's the real question again? Oh, Miles O'Brien's moment. Okay. I got like 3 of them, and since I think everybody's pretty much gone except for Homer, I'm going to take his answers. Sorry, Homer. I always do. The first thought I had was Redemption in TNG, the Klingon Civil War episode, where they're, I think, kind of skeleton crewish because everybody has to go, command another ship or something, and Worf is gone anyway, and so Chief O'Brien is manning the big bad Horseshoe Tactical Station.
Yeah.
So don't get it twisted. Yeah, he's a non-com, and they stick him in the transporter room, but dude got skills.
Mm-hmm.
And let's see. Second is what was the second one? When he wished Keiko was more like a man. He catches himself. Like, whoa, did I really just wish my wife was more like a man? And the third one is like when I think he was getting ready to go on vacation. Yeah, he suffered in that episode too, but before he suffered, he was like so frantic trying to make sure that everybody knew what to do while he was gone, and they basically had to shove him out of the airlock. Like, dude, we can live without you for a week. Go, go have a vacation or get kidnapped by Cardassians or something. And so I appreciate that about his character because it just shows how invested the character is in the work that he does. that he like he just owns it all, and wants to make sure that it's done right and everybody's ready. So
yeah, when O'Brien goes on a trip, it's a vacaco. So
yeah, let me get that agonizer if you would.
yeah, my bad. Was that out loud? Sue, I don't think we've heard yours yet, right?
I've got 3. Okay, so there's a time that Keiko came out. I guess she had been on Bajor, and she returned pregnant, and Molly says, "I have a brother," and she says, "I was going to tell you," or I can't remember word for word, but he said, "Well, you were only here for a couple of days," and I thought it would take more than once. I think he
hoped it would.
That was hilarious. There's I'm pretty sure it was him. I hope I'm not getting him confused with somebody else, but when he was playing darts and he was in the zone and he hurt his arm, he was out for the count. I thought that was priceless. What a bummer. And then when Nog got accepted into the academy, he said, I can't remember who he said it to. I think it was Dr. Bashir, right? He said, "I'm going to have to call him sir."
Yeah.
Love that.
Yeah, your first example was later on in that episode was when Chief says, like, "You want to try for seconds?" Or what? Not seconds. He says twins. That's right. She's like, "I don't think that's how it works."
That way.
Yeah, seconds, twins, whatever.
Whatever.
The seconds you can go for, twins you can't.
Yeah, right. Homer, did we steal your ideas?
Yes, but I have a safety or a fallback, and we haven't seen this episode yet, but he is a Klingon.
The ugliest Klingon ever.
Yeah, that face is
so lumpy. Mashed potato
and how
face.
he's so whiny and complaining about it too.
I like the pain. I think that's one of the lines. I don't know.
T-Pain. That's it, Homer. I thought you had more than one. You seemed like you had a few.
I was thinking about a lot of stuff, and then I just thought I could get away with saying that. I think it's also his casual wear, which gives Jake Sisko a run for his money. And then there's a moment actually in this episode where at the end, Bashir offers to be the counselor, and he pretty much is like, "No, thanks." Yeah. So I like that sort of banter that they have, and the lighter moments are good.
Yeah. He says something like, I'll take my chance. Yeah. Oh, he totally
he
is.
can be a whiner.
That's
what
because
we like about him.
so much.
Yeah, that's part of his character.
Did really like TJ's answer about Next Generation, because that's kind of where I try to look back at like the coolest moments, and it was him on the battle bridge. But I'm remembering, I think it was in the very first episode in Encounter at Farpoint, where he and Geordi, I think it was, were doing the battle bridge with Riker, and maybe you guys can correct me on that, when he was saying, the manual, or no, maybe I'm getting those confused, because Riker was on the regular bridge when he did that. But anyway, yeah, O'Brien on the battle bridge. I think that was the coolest moment in Red. The saddest moment for me, though, was when on the Deep Space Nine pilot Emissary, where he was kind of mean to Picard. And I was like, when I saw Picard there talking with O'Brien, I'm like, oh, good. They're going to be like reliving old times and everything. And O'Brien's like, whatever, dude, it ain't that deep. I worked for you, but we're not friends. And that kind of made me sad.
Like, come on, man.
For shoving him in the transporter room. So.
Yeah. Remember, he was kind of mean to him.
They were all mean.
I have to go back and
He
check that
suffered
out.
so much.
Yeah, I have to go back and look.
Yeah, I don't remember exactly. Picard said something like, what was your favorite transporter room 3, was it? And O'Brien was like,
just
yeah.
a transporter room.
Yeah, and then he just said like, what did I say?
That's what he said. It's just a transporter run.
Yeah, that's what it was. And he I don't know.
I
Made
remember
me
that.
sad.
Hmm.
He wasn't like
Yeah,
horribly
I
mean
remember
to him.
that scene.
Anyway, so since we have a few minutes left, let's get some couples in. Let's do it. So we got Keiko and Riker. That's the obvious one. That's the one that everybody's been clamoring for. Cirroc, do you have a couple you've always wanted that's the obvious chemistry?
Are we keeping this DS9 or
Anything?
Oh,
Couple.
How about Dorks?
Kira and Odo, yeah.
Dorks.
Yeah.
Odo
oh no?
or
Dorks.
Odira.
Wodo.
Jackson Wharf. Dorks.
Torx.
Vana, Loxana, and
Dwarf.
Tuvok.
Okay.
Wow.
Loxana and oh god, Tuvok would
Right,
hate
that couldn't
her.
be two more opposite
That's
attraction
perfect.
story. Yeah.
Ivana.
Like the odd couple.
All right, Homer's definitely sitting on one. You can tell. He's ready.
No, I'm not.
I got one.
Oh.
I'm gonna go with Beverly Crusher and the Ghost Sex Candle.
Yeah.
So what is the amalgamation, or what are those? What's the words when you put them together?
Crusher sex.
Oh, the
Yeah.
the little cute couple name.
Is it
things.
Crandall? What is it?
Don Crandall. Oh, I see. Crusher and the candle. What's the
Well, his
actor?
name was Ronan, wasn't it? So it's like, oh, this is good.
Cronin.
Don't record this one. It's Bonin.
Let me. Yeah.
I don't understand how.
You do support me, PJ. See, Ryan, this is what you've done.
This is my. I blame
This
myself.
is your fault, Ryan.
Here's the agonizer. Do what you gotta do.
Yeah. Well, I can't really follow that. Cirroc's waiting for me too. He's like, "Okay, what are you gonna say, Ryan?" Did you have any others to add, Cirroc, before we go?
I can't. I was thinking 7 of 9 with Riker or something like that, but what would that be? Swiker?
Yeah, Psyker.
Riker of 9. I don't know. It's a good one.
Yeah, William of 9. William, yeah. Anyone got anything else?
I
Riven.
mean, it's Biker, actually. Well, yeah. I think Troy called him Beal exactly one time on screen. So I'll take that and make it Biker.
Okay.
No, that's just him with himself. That's quite not right. I quit.
Right now, people in the
Sometimes it's
chat
good.
are coming up with way better names than any of
Yeah.
us right now. They're just nailing this. And we're like,
All right.
Tuvix?
So that is a comment section job for the chat pack. Drop in your favorite name combinations in the comments below.
Mhm.
And credit to Mr. War Dog Hine for teaching us always to stimulate Mr. Google Pants.
That means Google.
That does not quite
There's a
sound
good
right
one
either.
for Trip and T'Pol. Tripal. That's an easy one.
Spock and
Anyway.
Dax.
Dude.
Who Dex?
Spock and Dax for a little
Okay.
Spax.
Spandex.
Bats.
Anyway, maybe we should have ended on top after the O'Brien thing. That maybe we should have cut it 4 minutes ago.
Oh, I can't wait to see the comments.
Yeah. Anyway. All right. Well, unless somebody has any final thoughts on the actual episode that we just watched and reviewed, that was really good, really fun, and brought up PTSD and a lot of issues in that episode that are hardly ever touched on in Star Trek. So it's kind of a standout issue. I don't know if anybody has any thoughts on it before we go.
I really liked it when when Miles first got back, he was sleeping on the floor.
Yeah.
She woke up and she put the blanket on him. I thought that was a really lovely thing to do.
Yeah.
In that scene, I also noticed the the pillows on the bed are like these triangle foam things, and I just gotta wonder if there's any comfort at all in a triangle, heart-shaped pillow that
doesn't look comfortable
because it's a space pillow.
A space pillow.
I thought. I always like this episode because I connect with the emotional story of O'Brien, who has gone through this thing, and it's like it's been 20 years, and then all of a sudden he's back, in his old life. And I think not so much with the PTSD part of it, but kind of the mind exercise that we sometimes do. Like, if I could go back to a point in my life, start back there. And that's what he actually done, but it actually is traumatic. So imagine, going back, 20 years in your past and waking up, and like, oh my God, I got to go to school today, or, whatever was going on in your life 20 years ago. And having to pick up like that, like I don't remember the schoolwork I was doing 20 years ago, or what I was supposed to do for a certain person or a teacher or any of those things. So imagine this guy coming back to his job 20 years later and having to be chief of operations again.
Jake helps them with it. We forgot about that. Jake has a great moment in this episode.
Yeah, Jake says,
a very strange looking shirt.
Jake does reassure him. He's like, don't worry, you're still the chief. We still got respect for you. But
the tools.
Yeah, with the tools.
Something Mark III, I forget what it was.
I mean, what a turn of events too, from him teaching me what the tools are to now vice versa. I thought that's great.
Quantum flux regulator Mark III.
Yeah, that's right.
Sorry, go ahead, Cirroc.
No, one of the things I didn't bring up when we were doing the review that kind of hits me now is the fact that O'Brien is dealing with all of these things that he experienced in his own mind, essentially, right? But things that he experienced that got him to that place. And one of the things that makes me think of is, okay, well, how many of us are living with these kinds of experiences of things that we didn't actually live ourselves? And I talk about that to bring up things like, for example, Black people in this country always have to deal with the history of racism and what has happened to them in this country before they were even born. So they almost have to, it's almost like these memories are implanted into their own experiences of just growing up. So you have to add on all of these experiences that you didn't actually experience, but you still have to incorporate them and make adjustments to your own behavior in life. And it could weigh on you like something like a PTSD. So it just made me think about something like that, where many of us have to deal with things that happened before we were even born and take on some of those things. I mean, women have to do it too. The things that they had to overcome and still have to overcome. So many of us are dealing with these conceived notions and these historical contexts that are applied to our own lives and cause strain and stress in our own daily life. Just wanted to bring that up.
Mm-hmm. Here.
Well said.
Very true. It's very real.
It's almost like an implanted memory.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, it would have been interesting to bring that up and get Robert's take on that. That's a good point. I hadn't thought of that at all. Homer, you look like you're getting ready to say something, no? Just leaning in. All right.
And Sue, I actually just thought of you recently because I was reading an article that talked about fruit flies, and it talked about how they can be genetically modified to change their color, and so some of them have been. Yeah, so they mentioned producing a batch of electric blue fruit flies through genetic modification, and the offspring of those fruit flies were also blue once they changed it to the genetic level.
Okay.
Wow. So I was thinking about you. It's like, oh, that's something that Dr. Sue would be interested in.
Fruit flies are cool. I'm sure Muhammad works with fruit flies.
That's exactly it. Yeah, shout out to Dr. Muhammad Noor. Also, it's important to try to say blue fruit flies 5 times fast.
Blue-eyed fruit flies. Blue-eyed.
Oh.
Yeah.
Blue-eyed fruit flies.
I thought Cirroc was going to break into song when he said they had offspring that were blue. It's like that song, I have an offspring and he is so blue. I'm blue, da-da. Whoops, we should have stopped recording.
Yeah.
Before you do that, at least one more shout out to your shirt, NASA. And NASA landing the Perseverance rover on Mars, and all the wonderful HD pictures and videos of the red planet that are
so cool.
Brand new, never been seen before. So if you, even after this free for all airs, have not seen them, then I suggest that you go and do so at this time.
It's really cool.
And I'm going to make a shout out too to the movie Woman in Motion. If you have not seen it, it's streaming. And have you seen it? Have you guys seen it yet?
No, we actually gave it a shout out at the beginning of this episode.
Oh my God, it is unbelievable. Yvette was kind enough to invite me to watch with the Sci-Fi Sisters and some other people on the Eisenberg. And I sat here sobbing when I was watching it. I had no idea what an incredible person she was. I'm not going to give anything away, but it's worth every penny. I think it's $12 or something like that to stream it. And I recommend it highly. Just make sure you have tissues while you're watching it.
This is the story about Nichelle Nichols. This is her story.
Yep. She was so much more. She had multiple hats in her life. It's fascinating. I'll just say one little thing. Before she was on Star Trek, she toured with Duke Ellington and his orchestra as a singer. I didn't know that. And of course, the whole thing with NASA, I knew nothing about that. She is unbelievable.
Yeah, our good friends over at Shout Factory, we did mention this at the beginning of this episode, but just to reiterate, this is what it's about. It is called Women in Motion, Nichelle Nichols, Star Trek and the Remaking of NASA, the inspiring true story of how renowned Star Trek actress Nichelle Nichols pioneered the NASA recruiting program to hire people of color and the first female astronauts for the space agency in the late 1970s and 1980s. The film is available in home theaters, on digital, and on demand everywhere now. So check it out, everybody. Good shout out. Thanks for doing that.
Very good shout out. Thank you, Sue.
It was awesome. I will see it again, and I'm sure I'll buy the DVD or Blu-ray, whatever. It's just there's just so many aspects of her that are astounding.
Also, final thing, quick shout out to Manic Panic. Am I right, Carly? That's the dye that has all the different colors. What brand did you use?
They do normal hair color, but they also have like really vivid colors that they use. So actually like dark blue and purple in the back too, but
Wow,
not as noticeable since there's very little hair there now. So
looks awesome.
thank you.
Called the Arab hair.
The Arab hair.
The hair.
All right. Well, thanks everybody for joining us. Homer, Sue, Carly, TJ, Melissa, Cirroc. We got another one in the bag. It was a fun one. Lots of good stuff. Very special thanks to Robert Hewitt Wolfe for joining us and teaching us things and making this show extremely interesting for us to do. Thank you to everybody at home. Thank you to, somebody did mention the Eisenberg, Mr. Aaron Eisenberg, that the ship is named after, our favorite human in the world. And we'll see you all very soon. Always remember the 7th rule.